and good evening from Camelot Castle. We are joined tonight, as we like to say here, this is the epicenter of freedom and of political thought. But tonight, I have to say that our guest has completely outflanked us, because we are joined live from the White House. And I'm going to bring her on stage right now. This is Chanel Rion, if I'm saying that correctly. Am I usually, Chanel Rion, is it? Rion?
Yes.
Anyway,
it's Rion.
Very warm welcome to Camelot Castle.
Thank you.
Now, could you explain to our viewers exactly where you are at the moment?
Yes, this is a place I believe many of your viewers will recognize, and I will walk you through the not so glamorous portions of it first. And I will turn the camera over. I don't know if you recognize that.
Wow.
So that is actually that is the West Wing there, or which part? We're in the White.
That is the West Wing, and I'm going to walk us over here to the residence of the White House.
Wow. That is absolutely beautiful. And what a lovely day it is in Washington, D.C.
It is a lovely day.
Has it warmed up a bit there now already, or?
It has. It has warmed up to a very swampy degree as of a couple days ago. We had some drenching rains come through and excite everybody for a little bit, wash away some of the graffiti that's been vandalizing our buildings, and now we're back to some nice June weather here in DC.
Well, I suppose the swamp creatures probably like the swamp weather, I should imagine, but
yes.
There we go.
They thrive under it, certainly.
Thank you for
showing us around. It's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. Now, for our British viewers, of course, you have a lot of fans over here in the UK, because, as many of you know, Chanel is the rising star of the White House press corps.
She's the president's favorite reporter. It's pretty clear.
Well, I think she is probably.
Absolutely, because she's very direct and very honest.
Absolutely.
And she's there to report the news, which is so refreshing, and it just warms my heart whenever you ask questions. And I see that finally he can have a break and actually really answer something that actually matters.
Well, that's very kind of you guys to say so. We certainly try at OANN to make sure that we're asking questions that are not driven by any particular narrative. And what's really interesting about how this White House is covered these days is you have a press corps that, for the most part, is driven to seek information solely to damage the president and the administration, which is a rather extreme corruption of what journalism should be. Journalism should be that you are always curious, you're always asking questions that society and the world is interested to hear from people who are in positions of power. You are there to challenge them and there to also support facts when they come out. And that really has been the mission of OANN in covering the White House. And it's extraordinary how just covering the facts and not being driven by any kind of particular hatred or vitriol really has brought a lot of attention to us and how we approach the news and how we approach coverage, and in turn has also inspired a lot of hate and resentment from those who are trying to push a very leftist narrative. So that's an update as far as the kind of coverage we provide.
Well, we've noticed, I mean, obviously, we've been great followers of the Trump campaign since about June 15th, when he came down the escalator, 2015. And one of the things we've been trying to do here from Camelot Castle is to explain to ordinary people, how the president thinks and what his tweets mean and so on and so forth. And I have noticed the meteoric rise of OANN over that period. Could you just give a little bit of the history of OANN and then just explain how it is set apart from the other mainstream news channels?
Sure. So OAN, I mean, it's a fairly new outlet as far as outlets are concerned. You know, it was started by the Herring family in San Diego, California. And unlike other networks who have a lot of special interests who own many shares in their company, this is a network that is owned solely by the Herring family, and they have one goal in mind, and that is to bring an alternative to the raging, screeching news headlines that surround us every day that are driven by a certain side or a certain narrative. We just want to provide facts. We want to provide news coverage that no one else is really covering, and in that way, we have become known as the outlet that provides more news per hour than pretty much I'm challenging you to find other news outlets that cover more stories per hour than OAN does. We have 3 opinion shows that are very popular in the evenings, and this is where a lot of our, you know, opinion pieces come in. And we have 7 days a week we cover the White House, and that's something that we do consistently. We do this every day, and it's not. It's one of the things that really makes our network unique is that we've set ourselves apart from the very breathless and highly narrative-produced news that you see every single day through MSNBC or CNN. You know, you have correspondents who are provided a script every single day, and they're told, here's what we need to cover today, and you guys have to just follow that script. I challenge you to find the money that's behind these other networks. You follow the money and you find all these interesting elements that are guiding and directing their opinions. With OAN, it's a very clear path to one family. It's a family-run business, if you will. It's kind of a funny way to phrase that, to think that a news organization could be a family-run business. But we're in over 40 million homes. We are broadcasting worldwide, but here in the United States, we've created quite the following from people who really just want fact-based news, which is what we do. It sounds contrite, but it's much harder to do than you would think. So, you know, compare OAN to other networks. You know, as the White House correspondent here, I am not given marching orders every morning. I get to wake up every morning, look at what the news is, decide on my stories, produce my own investigative specials, and it's such a freedom that I really did not realize was so rare in the news business. And, you know, I could call Mr. Herring tomorrow and say, hey, I have a lead in Bahrain and I need to fly over there tomorrow. And he will more likely than not say, well, how can we help? What is it that you're going to do to make sure you're safe? So that's how our news is really generated here.
Well, please pass our deepest respect to Mr. Herring and to his family, because, of course, what he's doing, he's pursuing the original purpose of journalism. Of course, Britain was the first place where newspapers were born. And I'm afraid that we're also the birthplace of the fake news. We came up with the fake news as well. And we have exported some of the worst fake news operatives in the world. Piers Morgan, of course, is the king, or we call him the emperor of the fake news over here. But I have to say, you are showing that these emperors of fake news have no clothes. Now, if anybody wants to subscribe to OAN, you can do that. And I'm going to ask Mark to put the link in the comments. You can find them on OANN.com. or on Cloud TV, which somebody's going to put in the links. And I would ask everybody to subscribe to OAN, because, you know, you're not getting an accurate picture from the media. And it is very brave. And, you know, we see some of these journalists, like that Acosta fellow, who is absolutely, I don't know how he has any credibility left at all with the mainstream media. But I mean, what is it like on a daily basis to be literally one of the only non-fake news journalists in the White House press corps? I mean, are they a bit mean to you, these other journalists, or do you actually all get on all right, or do they bully you?
You've given me quite the crown that I'm the only non-fake journalist. I don't know that's entirely true,
One
but
of them. One of them.
as far as meanness, well, as far as meanness, I mean, I think there was initially a lot of friction when it came to my asking questions that didn't really match what they wanted to push, and there was initially a lot of you know, friction and bullying and maybe not so friendly stares and you know, mockery on the ground. But for the most part, most people here are very good. Like, they're good people. You have a handful of individuals who really turn on that kind of who really generate, if you will call it, fake news. And then the cameras turn off and suddenly they're normal people. And I don't know what drives that kind of that on and off switch, but for the most part there was a lot of opposition to what the questions I was asking, or how I was not really kissing the ring of their stories and their narratives, and I was not vitriolic to this campaign or to the administration. And to them, that was just the biggest affront to their establishment there could be. Normally, they got away with being able to pressure individuals who were not part of the groupthink. They could slander you, write stories about you, you know, put all kinds of things out there that weren't true, which they've done to me. And the usual expectation was that once you were attacked and slammed by the press, you would cower your tails and run off, cower your tail and run off. But I think they've since realized that no matter what they do to me, I'm still going to show up to work every day, and I'm still going to do what I always do. I'm not going to bend to their will or to their narrative. And so I think once that was established, the relationship and I think the environment evolved into a more civil one, and that's taken about a month and a half or 2 months at least.
Because how long have you been a journalist? You've been doing this for how long yourself personally?
Myself personally, 1 year and 1 month.
That is incredible.
Tell us, how did that happen for you?
I was in DC and I was attending an event. I had been, you know, my academic training was more in international relations, and so I never imagined myself being in news proper. But I was at an event and I met someone who worked at OANN, and they asked me to show up at the studio and put up a screen test, and they asked me if I was interested in doing that. One reason that was asked, this reporter was Neil McCabe. He has been with OANN for a very long time. He's with Project Veritas now. But Neil McCabe spotted me and said, I remember you from the 2015 campaign. You were in New Hampshire with your entire family, and you were standing in line outside in the snow waiting to get into the watch party for the Trump campaign. And that was in New Hampshire, the New Hampshire primary. And that was true. We were interviewed by Neil McCabe back then. And I've always been a politico growing up. Came from a very political family, very politically centric family. So showed up for my screen test. They asked me if they kind of tested me to see how much I knew about politics. They wanted to know how interested I was in actually covering it. I said I was open to it, took my screen test, and I was hired that day. So it was a very fluid, very serendipitous occasion, and I've been swimming in these waters ever since. It's been
Congratulations!
Congratulations, because your star is rising. You're a household name in England now, and you're very much the same in America. Now, for our viewers, obviously we've been watching the riots in America, and we've been having a few over here now. What is your personal take on the situation in the USA right now, and what is happening to the president's voter support? What's your sort of take at the moment?
I can say that from a personal standpoint, the radical divisions are being clearly drawn right now. And you have the radical left at this moment, represented by Antifa, and hijacking the Black Lives Matter movement. These two groups have gone way too far. And the Democrat Party is so weak, they're unable to stand up against these radical fringes and say, wait a second, defunding the police is maybe a little bit, might be going a little bit overboard, or taking over Seattle and turning it into a dumpster fire is maybe not such a great idea. The Democrat Party is really showing itself to the American people that it lacks the leadership to stand up and say enough is enough to the riots and the pandemonium that you're watching on screen. And it's also showing that if it really comes down to it, the left has these radical, deep-rooted, very hateful ideas that they want to impose on the entire world. And so when you take all of that, I think that the American people, the average American, is watching this and saying, I don't want to have a neighborhood where if my house gets broken into, I can't call the police and I can't find help. I don't want to have a world where I have to show my papers to a bunch of Antifa people and tell them that I would like to join their commune. People don't want to do that. And that's what you're watching on screen, if you're watching it on screen, are really the radical few who have taken over the Democrat Party. And I don't imagine the Democrat Party taking hold of this pandemonium anytime soon. And it's playing out on live TV, Americans are watching it, and it's really not going to play well once responsible voters get to the voting booth. They want to vote for stability, they want to vote for prosperity, and they don't want to vote for a candidate like Joe Biden, who took 3-4 days to finally come up with a statement saying that he opposed defunding the police. I mean, can you imagine a leader who took that long to decide whether or not law enforcement was a good thing? That's what we're watching on our end. And so I would like to give you some examples of what kind of numbers the White House is looking at and kind of gathering hope from. I was just speaking to the co-chair of the Republican Party in Florida, and he gave me some really interesting numbers this morning. He said that in 2016, 32 of the Republican states Republican counties in Florida were Republican out of the 67. So 32 out of 67 were Republican counties. Now you fast forward to now, and you have, let me see his numbers, you have 46 counties that are majority Republican out of the 67. That is a 20% increase where states have actually flipped from blue to red. And this is in the state of Florida, which is a swing state. This is a state that the Trump administration, the Trump campaign really needs to win if they want to win the White House in 2020. So that's just an example of what is happening on the ground, even though the press will say that national polling is disastrous for Trump right now. You saw the president just putting out that his own pollster, John McLaughlin, who's a brilliant guy, John McLaughlin came out and said, look, all these polls are wrong because they're sampling non-voters. You need to be sampling potential voters to get an accurate picture of what's going to happen. So I think that the left is really going to overplay their hand, and they're not going to be able to rein in some of the wilder elements of their party. And the voters, on average, the average American is not going to put up with it.
I mean, the average person really doesn't do riots. They like law and order, and they like to win in life, and they want their children to have a peaceful idea of life. They don't really, and really, I get quite offended when I hear that people are accusing America of being a racist society, because I lived in America for 6 years. And of course, there are rare examples of where you have an individual, and nobody is trying to excuse the behavior that we witnessed from that police officer. But the idea that the police in America are racist, or that the police here are racist, or that there's some sort of institutionalized racism. I've never lived in a freer country And I can say, as an English person, I used to fly back to America regularly after I left there in order to just get a dose of the freedom and to get a dose of what you guys are keeping alive, which is why I really appreciate what you and what OAN and what the Herring family are doing, because when the truth gets corrupted, it destroys society. And I really feel that the media and the fake news, not the good media, and there are even, you know, I sort of understand why the fake media do what they, because they're being paid to carry that message. You know, they have their bosses and they are given their scripts. I mean, we've all seen these YouTube videos with all of these people just saying the same thing, and they're handed their script out every day. And I understand they're guns for hire, and I understand they've got jobs and they probably need to pay their mortgages. But a journalism it's an honorable profession. It's a duty. It's a noble profession. So I think that it is very, very important. You had a question, darling, for Rion, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I just wanted to understand, what are your personal goals as a reporter? Where do you see yourself going from now?
Well, it just seems so odd to have to answer that, because I feel like I've only been in this entire industry for such a short amount of time, but I have learned a lot in the process. I think that my personal goals are really that I would like to, at one point, look back and know that I never kissed the ring of the establishment powers. Wow. That I look back and I say, I told the truth in all that I did. I would like to look back and say that I helped to expose the minions and the gatekeepers and the snakes who are trying to usurp our liberties every single day. I would like to look back and say, yes, I did that. I would like to look back and say that I found stories that were overlooked, stories that were ignored, and I found them and retrieved them, and I told them well, and I shared them in a way that they could be told again. And you know, I would like to have looked back and said that I never gave up, I never gave in, and I always stood up for what was correct and right. And I especially want to look back and think that I enjoyed every second of it along the way. So I think those are I don't know if that answers the question, but I think it's mostly a looking
beautiful purpose thing.
That is such a beautiful answer, and you have done that already, and you do that every day. What you already said.
I hope so. We have a long fight ahead of us. I mean, I'm just one person, but there's a lot of people in the world that really do have those same missions. They don't necessarily have the same platform, and I think that's a shame. And I think that that's another reason why I so loathe the establishment, and that's why I take great pride knowing that we are constantly shedding light on establishment powers who have gotten too big for their britches and have decided that they run the world. I think that people forget, when they're under so much authoritarian control, they forget to ask the question, is this necessary? Instead, we just go right along with what is always done. This has always been done, and suddenly you look up and you see an intersection with 60 cameras on it looking down on you and deciding whether or not you've picked your nose or you've thrown some trash on the ground. Like, we're going to reach that point if we don't have a society that understands we must continue asking questions. And you cannot have a society where asking questions automatically means you're a conspiracy theorist, which is something that I think the media is now turning into. It's turning into a machine where if you dare to ask a question that is not in line with the leftist globalist narrative, you are a conspiracy theorist, because don't you dare commit the audacious crime of asking a question, because that is, lo and behold, the worst thing you could possibly do. That entire apparatus, I would love to have been part of the machinery that clawed at that apparatus and took it down, destroyed it completely, and started over and allowed new media, citizen journalists, and people who ask real questions to have a platform to do so.
Well, I think you're 100% right. Now, and that is an exceptional purpose. Could you, as we've got you here, tell us a little bit about what it is like to work with the other great female star of the White House, who is the new press secretary? Because we love her as well. We love her as well.
And you both.
You're like a sort of
you're like a formidable
team.
pair. You are incredible.
So she is a and I described her this way the other day. She is someone who has a gracious grit about her, and I think that's really a characteristic that is very, very consistent with the women who work from that podium. You had Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You had Stephanie Grisham. Let's not forget about her. She did not provide press briefings, but in the background, she was someone who had a lot of she was a steely-nerved individual. And that is really what it takes to survive in that briefing room, facing the sharks and the piranhas and the vipers every single day. And one common trait that I see in the people who survive on that podium seems to be the more vitriolic and hateful they are from the briefing room floor, the more energy she seems to gather from it, knowing that she has this amazing platform in which to correct narratives that the White House deems incorrect. So I think that she's an absolute joy.
She is unbelievable. She's like a sort of
yeah.
But I think also she's very she has a deep faith, doesn't she? She has a deep religious faith.
Yes.
And I think that's
there are hot button issues with Kaylee that you can press, and you will notice them. Keep an eye on it in the future. If you start messing with religion and start disparaging it, or is disparaging her religion, like that's something that she holds sacred, not only for herself but for others. Religious liberty in general. That is a hot button issue, and she will get awry. You will see her pull out the extra clause, right? So that's something that you'll notice. Otherwise, she keeps her calm, she keeps her cool, and she does so with a smile. And yes, faith is a very important element of her being. And I think that's really how she's going to endure in this role for a very long time as well, having that grounding.
I agree. And I think, of course, people on this side of the pond forget that the reason America was founded was really because you guys got fed up with lack of religious freedom over here, and you decided that you're going to have religious freedom and respect for all religions, and that you've got somebody on the podium there with that. But you've been so giving of your time, and you said you'd give us 15 minutes. We've had half an hour, and I'm very mindful of that. I gather there's one more point. Congratulations are in order. You've gotten engaged, or you're getting married, or something like that.
I am.
Or you have gotten married.
You're getting married.
You're getting
October
married.
1. I was a coronavirus bride. I had an April wedding all planned out, and then coronavirus hit us, and then I had to postpone by about 6 or 7 months or whatever it was. And so yes, we are excited. We're getting married in Key West at the Hemingway home. That'll be fun. But we're going to have a good time. It'll be about a month before the election, so it should be a very exciting time.
Well, that should be fun. Well, after the election, will you take your honeymoon after the election, probably, or you will do it before, or
we squeeze it in before, just so that we can get it. We can get ready for the busy season ahead.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
Well, if you come this way, we'd love to receive you at Camelot Castle, and we've got a great honeymoon suite here, which you can come and visit, and we would love to receive you here.
Well, my fiance is a Sykes, and so he has very English roots. I don't know where exactly. I myself have Scots-Irish roots, along with my Korean roots, but I do have some roots over there with you guys. So
Good.
Hopefully we'll do heritage thing.
Well, it'd be lovely to see you. We'll say goodbye after you just give us one more glimpse of the White House.
Oh, yes.
Could you show our viewers just one more time, because a lot of people came on late. I just love them to see where you're broadcasting from.
Of course. All right. Well, let me actually walk you through a little further than I did last time.
Okay.
Very kind. Thank you.
So this is the North Lawn, and that's the entrance. These are the broadcasting tents from where you see many correspondents deliver the news to the rest of the world.
And
there is the residence. I don't know if you can see it right
Yes.
now. There's the residence.
Beautiful. And
This is the West Wing right ahead of us.
we can hear the birds. We can hear the White House birds.
Oh, I see. So this is where they do the. Yeah, this is fantastic. Of course, we recognize this. Oh, there's the front. There's the front portico. That's absolutely beautiful. It is a beautiful, beautiful house, and I can't believe that they were talking about trying to burn it down the other day. It was unbelievable. There we go.
This is the executive building where the vice president is. I don't know if you can see through the sunlight.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can. Wow, I've never seen this view of it before. Beautiful.
This is a beautiful, beautiful building. Much history. And I can walk us through the press briefing room if you'd like.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
That's such a treat. Thank you so much.
Such a treat for our
Chanel.
viewers. Do share this, everybody. Very special.
That
This
is
the.
such an inside view. Behind the scenes. This is totally behind the scenes. Thank you very much.
This pathway here is, if you go straight forward, you will enter the Rose Garden by turning right, and then you can watch the takeoffs into Marine One.
Oh,
Wow.
really? Oh, wow.
Is the president with you today, or is he? Is oh, look at that. Oh, there.
Yeah. New Jersey.
Yeah. And that's your spot in the briefing room. I see. Fantastic, fantastic. This is where you. This is where
it all happens.
where it all happens.
Yes, and this is where we stand.
That's your spot.
I stand right there,
Yes, I read.
Yeah.
and as you can see, they've taped off our location. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. That's
You know,
very good.
we wait for your questions every time there's a press briefing. We just wait
Oh,
for you to come on.
And how can our viewers follow you personally? Do you have a Twitter account that they can follow you on?
I do. Most of you can find me at Chanel Rion, which is it's as it sounds, ChanelRion. And from there, make sure you follow OANN, OANN.com, and OANN on Twitter. And we provide, again, 24/7 news. And it's something that a lot of people have been switching over, especially in the United States. A lot of people are starting to cut the cable and go straight to streaming programs they just want to watch. And if you're international, you can watch OAN from anywhere through Cloud TV or even Apple TV. If you have an app, use Smart TV, you can download the OAN app. So there are many, many ways to watch OAN. Please especially tune in on the weekends. We have 30-minute special investigations, deep dive investigations that are really amazing, really interesting. You will hear stories on our special investigations that you don't hear anywhere else. And right now I'm working on an update on the Ukraine Biden story.
Wow.
And it has been so controversial that the Biden campaign has literally sent their media teams after me and OAN to have us not air the story. So hopefully your viewers will follow OAN and then be able to track that story once it's released next week.
Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to, on our Camelot Castle TV webpage, we're going to put a special link so people can subscribe to OAN, and we'll keep that on there permanently because what you're doing is so priceless, and I'm so glad that our viewers got a chance to meet you and get to know you. If you come on your honeymoon to England, you will stay as our guest at Camelot Castle, if that's something you want to do. And we would love to see you. We can do a broadcast from the round table. And
that
would be lovely.
And I just wanted to tell you can't see this, but our viewers are absolutely ecstatic about the tour. They cannot believe they got to see it, and thank you so much. They love you and they will follow you, and you have so many supporters, not only in America but in England as well. You are very much loved, and you're like a breath of fresh air. We're all waiting for your questions. You ask great questions, and you know, you can see that the president and the press secretary, they just finally they're really answering real questions that people should be asking from one person. So thank you so much for what you do.
Oh, Irina, that's so kind of you to say. Thank you very much. Thank you, John, also. Thank you both. It sounds like you guys are still having a grand time despite the shutdown. So
well, we're doing our fight for freedom here, and we'll see you when we come to Washington, D.C. We tend to stay at the Trump Hotel a few times a year, so we'll get together for a drink. Good.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for what you guys do.
Thank you, Chanel. God bless.
God bless. Well.
Wow. What about that tour?
That was pretty amazing.
What do we think about that tour, guys? That was pretty. That we didn't expect that, did we, John?
Well, I have to say that, you know, as we know, you know, when one gets around that presidential orbit, even remotely, the energy of truth and the energy of light and the energy of positivity is actually palpable. Well, that's it for this evening. It's been an absolute treasure of an evening, and we will see you.
And a lovely guest we had.
We had a lovely guest. Thank you, Chanel. We'll see you when we come to Washington, D.C.
She's an inspirational woman.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, amazing. She's going to go a long way, that one. She's going to go a long, long way. And we're going to help her. So everybody subscribe to Rion, retweet her, help her get the message out. She's a brave lady. She's taking on the Biden's corruption in Ukraine. I'm not sure even I would dare to do that one.
I think she'll do well with it.
I think she'll do very well.
I think Biden does not know, and his campaign, they do not. This is something that they haven't really figured out how to handle someone like her, who has the support of the President of the United States. I think they'll maybe break their teeth on that one.
Good. All right, darling. Well, thank you so much.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure.